is the Next Level Loan Officers podcast. To learn more about Next Level Loan Officers, go to becomenl.com.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Next Level Loan Officers podcast, the number one podcast in the world for loan officers by loan officers. My name is Kellen Vaughn in the Next Level podcast studios today. And listen, if you're a loan officer and you're listening to this and you're not part of our top producer huddle community, we'd love to extend an invite to you. You can check us out over at becomenl.com. Again, becomenl.com. You can learn all about Next Level and check us out over there. I'll tell you one of the things that we're talking about today, and I'm joined in the studio with a good friend, a fellow Next Level community member, my good friend, Steve Austin. Steve, welcome.
Happy to be here. I appreciate being graced with the opportunity.
Oh, listen, pleasure's all ours. Steve's been in the group for a while, great leader, down in the Florida area. What part of Florida? You're in West Palm, you said?
Yeah, Palm Beach area.
Palm Beach?
More north Palm Beach and like Jupiter to Cuesta if we're getting technical, but
Yeah.
and we're going to start hitting some names most people won't know.
Hey, we've got a good Florida audience that's listening to this podcast. They're going to know exactly where you are. So Steve and I were just having a conversation right before we started recording this. And I was just talking about kind of the quality of loan officers that are out there in the market today. And I firmly believe, in fact, if you're a member of Next Level, we've been talking about this for some time on our weekly coaching calls. But I firmly believe that there is a large portion of unqualified, non-professional loan officers that exist in the marketplace today. You'll probably say the same thing for realtors as well. And they all came into the market in 2020-ish when refinances were literally raining down from the sky. And, we had a hard time just keeping up and closing all the business that was there. And so you had a lot of guys that jumped into it who became experts at refis. And now they're trying to transition to a purchase market. And boy, it's rough. And I'll give you a quick example, and then I'm going to have Steve share a little bit. We recently, in the last 2 weeks, we've had 2 deals come over to us from other lenders where the lenders had just royally missed something. I mean, and put these people in a really bad situation. One of them was a VA borrower who had previously used their benefits, and this lender got them all the way down the line. They had earnest money that went hard, and then basically told them, hey, because you've used it before, you can't use it again. And just really terrible advice. And they ended up having to cancel the contract and lost their earnest money. I mean, this is just wild stuff. And so, it hurts my heart that loan officers get such a bad rap, because I feel like we do a great job of educating folks. But I truly believe that there's a lot of these folks out there, and they've been eating away at your business for the last 24 months. The good news is they're going to work themselves out of the market as quickly as they came in, because they're just not going to be able to sustain on a purchase side. But you and I, Steve, we're talking about the quality of loan officers and just some of the things that we really do different. So go into, I know you were talking about, hey, one of my kind of superpowers is really, really caring, really going the distance for the customer, really diving into the scenario. Give us a little detail on kind of some of that stuff you were sharing.
Yeah, for sure. It's, it's something we'll always deal with, right? There's, in every industry, there's people that are going to be really good at it and really bad at it. And that's kind of something, I mean, we may deal with at a higher percentage. Maybe we just think it is because we're here. But it's a battle, because I think it's, when you talk to someone, they want to buy a house, is a giant transaction for them. And I think a lot of people get scared to say, I don't know, or not know exactly everything up front. And most people, when you have a first conversation with them, especially with all the information they can get online now,
Sure.
They're coming to me as the expert.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to start there and figure out, what do I need to correct? Where are we really at? What are you actually looking to do? So to me, it's really important up front, like in those calls and conversations, is how much can I let you talk to tell me, like, what do you really want to accomplish? I don't really care what the daily national average rate is, or conventional this, FHA that. Like, what are you trying to accomplish with this purchase? And I think it's important dialing all that in, so we can, all right, well, now we can focus on like what actually is a scenario and what makes sense for you. Rate and everything, I try to have to be the last thing that we talk about, and really not talk about it unless you're really doing a full pre-approval. Because it's I think it was from one of our events, honestly. I forget who said it, but it was a guy who was like, you come in the bank and ask me for, oh, well, what's your rate? And it's like the rate place down the street said 4%. It's like, all right, well, 3.875. It's like, whatever you tell me they say, like, I'll say less because we're each at this, I don't know.
Right.
Like, sure. So it's like, I think if we can't take the time to try to re-educate them on what their scenario might be and maybe correct any misinformation that they have. And I also think it's okay to tell someone straight up, be like, man, that's an interesting thing. I'm not really sure, but this is how we look into it. Let me find you the answer.
Yep.
Have an example with a guy that lead from a realtor that I work with, and the guy's base level scenario, like, oh my God, this is great. You're going to be fine. Had a short sale in the beginning of 21. Telling me how great he was for the 24 years prior and never missed a house payment. And I'm like, that's all beautiful, but this is the most recent thing. This is where you're at, kind of based on that. We have to look in the non-QM world. Didn't like the rates, obviously.
Sure.
It's like I told him, like, hey, it's not as good as a conforming loan. That's 100% factual, but this is your scenario. It gets you into a house. You're not paying this crazy rent. That's gonna, arguably crazier than the purchase side. I don't know what you guys are seeing in your area, but we're having people call us and say their rent's going up $1,000.
Well, and that rent's 100% interest versus
Right.
maybe the 8.5 he was getting non-QM.
Exactly. And stayed in touch. We do like our weekly follow-up. He's looking, not really sure. And then out of the blue, he calls. He's in contract, waived his financing contingency. Some other lender told him it's no problem with that short sale because they don't have any overlays. I'm like, well, super, they may not have any overlays, but it happens to be a rule that we all have to follow regardless.
Right.
Strung him along for 3 days, 5 days, and now we're, in contract. I think he signed a contract on like the 5th, and we got started yesterday, and it's supposed to close April 5th on a waived financing contingency contract. It's like, hey man, this is where you're at. We'll try everything we can. It's non-QM, obviously a little bit harder. It takes a little bit more time. We're a little bit more hands-off and underwriting and stuff, but look at it as we'll figure it out later. And if we can't, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're seeing a lot of this, right? And you touched on it kind of right at the beginning, and it's kind of the Dr. Google thing, right? It's like, I got like a pain in my arm, and I go to my doctor and I'm like, hey, dude, I've already diagnosed this as like stage 9 arm cancer.
Yeah.
So probably just need to,
just take it.
Yeah. Just probably just take it right here at the shoulder and I'll be on my way. Right. So doctors have been dealing with this, with this like more educated, maybe not in the right way, but more educated patient that comes in the door. And so we've got kind of the same problem, right? Customers come in all the time or talk to us on the phone, and they just have their facts all jumbled up. And so
Right.
you got to get them all squared away first. And you had a great, we were talking before the show, you had a great thing you were saying of like how to kind of overcome some of that stuff, right? Like if they say something like, hey man, that rate sounds just outrageous, or, boy, that's really high. Well, you kind of had a comment to combat that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful. In almost every aspect of life and industry, but I think for us, especially in these times, is just asking that second question and leaving it more open-ended. Like, I think a how so is really, really powerful in what we can do. And you talk to people and they tell me like, hey, your rate's 4.5%. Like, oh, that seems high. I'm like, well, how so? And then make them give me an answer. Like,
Right.
I'm not going to say anything else. I need you to tell me why you think that. What are you comparing it to? Where are you hearing that?
And they go, well, my brother-in-law refied like a year ago for 2.99.
Yeah, I'm like, and then I say, yeah, I bet it did. Yeah. Like that makes sense. We're today. And it's, you can't sell your stock today for what it was worth yesterday. Right. Yeah. And it's everything in the economy is more expensive right now, right? Gas, houses, insurance, everything's going up. And for some reason, there's this stigma on what we do in our industry that, well, mortgage interest rates have to be the only thing that didn't increase. everything
Right.
else is inflation's up, everything else is up, but like my rate should still be 3%, right?
Mhm.
Like, and then same thing. It's like, well, why do you think that? What are you hearing?
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you the other thing too, in a rising, and again, I'm not saying anything that the listeners or you don't know, but it'll just lead into my next point is, when when you have a rate in a rising rate environment, all of a sudden you move to the fours, or heck, even when we move to the threes, right? And a borrower would call in and they're expecting to hear something in the twos, right? So even if you threw them a 299, they're like, great, cool, move forward. But you put a three in front of it,
Right.
and now they need to go shop around because they feel like something's amiss, right? Something's not right. You put a four in front of it, or 4.5, and it's like, man, I gotta go shop. So your customer base becomes a little smaller because of just the amount of people that can afford to buy right now. But
Right.
then you lose that rate shopper who goes and shops around. And to your point, what we were talking about before, the last guy wins, right? Because the last guy's going to go, what'd the last lender said? 4.5. Yeah, I got you at 4.49 all day long. You know what
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean?
No
So,
problem.
yeah, no problem. So, that's something that we have to kind of, work on and combat against,
Yeah.
out in the marketplace.
Yeah. And I think that's why, like, in my conversations with people, I try to leave rate for like the last thing we're talking about when we're
Sure.
going over pre-approval. So it's, really what the three things people care about the most: their rate, their monthly payment, and how much money they got to spend out of pocket. So, hey, your out of pocket be roughly this, and the monthly payment, you know, $2,500. Like, how's that sound? Does that seem in range with what you were thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's exactly what I was thinking. Range right. Okay, great. Well, what would my rate be? I was 475 today. It's like, oh, that rate seems high. It's like, yeah, but the payment works. So it's like, we
Mhm.
know the rate's not an indicator of like you can't afford it.
Right.
Now it's like, all right, well, how so? Why do we think it's high? You think it should be 4.25? All right, well, you could pay for it. That changes your payment, $80. Is that worth this 6 grand? What are you
Right.
doing with the house? And I think the more we can inform on that aspect, it's helpful. And like kind of we talked about before we started recording too, like people look at this as a whole, where it's like, I'm buying this house and I'm getting this 30-year loan. And that means I'm going to pay this back for 30 years,
Right.
even though we all know they're definitely not, you know, even especially now, like I can speak from experience. My wife and I had a first house. We were there for a couple years. Even in those couple years, we did some refis. You buy your other house, you sell that. Like, we're in the new one for, to be going on 2 years now. It's like, maybe
Yeah.
I'll be in this loan for now, but I don't know what I'm going to do. Like,
Listen, life happens, right? Kids,
right.
all kinds of things
It's,
change. Yeah.
and again, that's why I think, and I know Next Level's been such an influence on me and being able to grow, is because it's so much more of a focus point on the education part, and how can I really be your expert in what we do and like what you're trying to accomplish. You want that in this transaction, because if you don't, you're going to pay for it in some capacity.
Right.
And I think the more we can let them know and understand the difference, hey, 475 and like 4.25, like it's not $600. Like, you need
Yeah.
to understand what these differences actually are. And is going to PNC Bank, sorry, PNC,
Hmm.
to, because they're saying they got giving you a lower rate and the costs are lower and they're selling you this dream. Is that lower rate on paper worth losing this house?
Yeah.
Is it worth jeopardizing your deposit? And for some people it is, and some it isn't.
Sure.
There's certainly a percentage of people that call us back and say, "Oh, this has been terrible," and you're like, "Oh, no way."
Yeah. Well, and then you've got the bait and switch, right? So where they
Right.
say it's one thing and it's really another. We were on the on our coaching call on Monday. We one of our members was on, and she was saying it was actually pretty great idea. So she was saying they keep like Word document or a snippet with like 3 or 4 different rates that are available online, right? So like take a USAA, a Wells Fargo, and a Rocket. Like you can find the rates online and all their fine print, right? So like how many points, what the credits. And so when you get that guy, that you said that comes in and says, "Oh man, 475 seems a little high," and you go, how so? Oh, and he says, well, I think I've seen rates lower recently. And you go, you know what? Actually, let me show you how confident we are. Here, I'm gonna send this to you real quick. These are today or yesterday's rates from Wells, Chase, USAA, and Rocket. Take a look at it, and you maybe they look at that and they go, okay, well, maybe my thoughts were wrong. You go, yeah, I mean, we're right here with the rest of the market, and that's just where market is. And unfortunately,
Right.
it's moving so quickly that the news is half a point behind
Right.
reality. And
Right.
we've dealt with that forever, right? People would say, oh, I heard the rates moved down. Yeah, it was like a week and a half ago, that not anymore. But yeah, these are conversations that as we're in this environment, and maybe it'll slow down soon, but we're going to continue to have. And we talk about this a lot in Next. We've been talking about this transition to purchase for 8 months at
Right.
Next Level, and preparing for it. And we continue to talk about it. We continue to try to implement new strategies, and deploy things to our community, our Next Level community, to help them, combat this stuff, whether that's video prequals, just getting more strategic in the conversations, to your point, how to handle some of those objections. And of course, we're always talking about ATMs, right? Actions that matter, the things that we do every day to make sure that we're continuing, to build our business. So all of
Yeah,
those things are going to be important as we kind of transition to this new market.
for sure. And I think just something, we're making more of an emphasis on now is keeping informed on the market, right? Not just what is the numbers moving to, but why is it moving?
Yeah.
And getting that information forward to our partners and the people that are pre-approved. So especially in this market, right, it's taking people longer to get into houses, so we got to love on them and season with them for a little bit longer. And because we're having some of this volatility that's going on, where you look at, hey, when I pre-approved you 2 weeks ago, your rate was 4.5 and now it's 4.75. May or may not affect, like, I don't have to lower your purchase price, right? But
Yeah.
you're gonna like to know that. So
Yeah.
kind of every week, kind of emphasis on Fridays, weeks wrapping. We've paid attention to the updates, shout out MBS Highway
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
those, and giving a little update to everybody. Hey, this is what happened in the market this week. This is where you're at. Recently added Lender Logic to the mix for
Well, I was
the
going to
quick
ask you if you were
walls.
using the quick quals.
Yeah, so and I love that feature that they have on there to be able to go
Update,
update
yeah.
rates kind of on the just the one page. You can bang them all out, and hey, make sure we've updated your pre-approval. It's there. Check it out. If you have any questions, let us know.
Hmm.
So that way they're not in contract a week later, or they get in contract that week, and then you're like, hey, so
Yeah.
the market did this last week. You're keeping them informed,
Right.
and kind of we're adding our value on a regular basis to hopefully combat any shopping. Like, obviously it's always going to happen regardless of what the market does. There's
Yeah.
always going to be those people. And I've been telling a lot more people when they ask, we're like, well, could I do better somewhere else? And I tell them, like, listen, you can get cheaper almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
It depends. It doesn't mean it's always good.
That's right.
And I could get a lot of stuff from the dollar store that I don't.
Well, you bring up two great points, and we'll kind of wrap with this. So shameless plug to Lender Logic's Quick Qual, who just does phenomenal stuff. They're a great technology. We've been using them for a while. I love their rate update feature too. So yeah, that's great. Great partner of ours. But you bring up something else too, and you said, hey, we like to keep people informed, especially our partners, right? And I think that may be something that a lot of loan officers miss, is really educating those that refer you business, because that's where the conversation starts a lot of times, right? That realtor may be having conversations about interest rates with that customer before they ever even apply with you.
Right.
And if your realtor's informed and preps that conversation with, yeah, rates have really gone up, and the customer goes, oh, really? What are they at? And, you could expect 4.5, now that customer goes, oh man, okay. They're prepared for that conversation coming into that with you. So I think that's really powerful, because they can hurt you the other way. If they're ill-informed, then
Right.
that borrower gets the prequal, shows it to their agent goes, oh man, that 4.5 is outrageous.
Right.
You know, you should go talk. You should get another opinion on that.
Right. And there's certainly agents with plenty of opinions.
Oh, there's no doubt. I'd rather form their opinions for them,
Right.
and have them advocating on my behalf rather than coming up with their own stuff. Right. As I'm
Right.
sure, it's just, yeah. But, well, dude, listen, this is great. And man, what a good conversation. Like, I think a lot of loan officers listening to this just kind of appreciate, some guys who are in the trenches just talking about the realities of doing business today. And, and this is the kind of stuff that we do at Next Level. Like, we just talk through these problems. We come up with solutions and strategies that help us all be better and help us all to grow. So, man, thank you first and foremost for being part of our community, for being a leader in the group. We appreciate you. Thanks for coming on and hanging out with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And listen, like I mentioned at the beginning, if you're a loan officer and you're not part of Next Level, come hang out with us. You can rub elbows with Steve at our next event, or if you're down in the South Florida area, hit him up. I'm sure he'd be happy to grab a cup of coffee. And join us. Check us out over at becomenl.com. And also, you can watch us over on YouTube. We put all these up on YouTube. So if you want to see Steve and I chit-chatting today, then you can check it out there as well. Otherwise, we will catch you on the next episode of the Next Level Loan Officers podcast. Thanks, everyone.